Welcome back to the Semi-Informed Football Podcast, the only football show where we're confident enough to make World Cup predictions, but self-aware enough to know that they'll probably age very horribly.
That's because I'm informed.
So going into this, Mark, let's actually take a look at this expanded format, because I really do think that this is going to change how things play out in the World Cup. So first of all, I think this has been kind of forced down everybody's kind of throat for like the longest time, but 48 teams this time. It's a much larger kind of universe of teams going into this. Another interesting one, and we'll go into this deeper in another podcast, because I think there's a lot of strategy involved in, is that it's not just the first and second place from each group. It's actually, there's 8 third place teams that advance. So that's a significant change. And I think right now, what does this do? Like, Mark, I'm going to throw this right off to you. Like, does this help teams recover from a bad start, or does it give more opportunities to the outsiders?
It definitely helps if you do have a bad start, but there's so much strategy involved. If you have 2 big heavyweights going at it, or 2 strong teams that could win the group or finish second, they might play it safe. In a weird turn of events, okay, one thing I did as a coach was sometimes I'd get my teams to tank a bit and make the last qualifying spot, only so that we would play the strongest team and then would come to play and we would destroy the top team. And that was more of my mind games to get into the heads of the players of all the other teams. Wow, yeah. They barely qualified, and then they destroyed the first place team 6-0. What are we in for?
And it's kind of like the load management, right? So we heard about this, and we've mentioned this on a podcast before, but there's an abundance of players going into probably what's happening with their last World Cup, aging players in their late 30s, in some cases in their early 40s, right? So this is load management. So maybe you don't need those players earlier on when you think you have the points enough to actually go forward. Yeah, maybe you're not winning that group, but you have the points to go forward, and you can kind of save your talent for, the knockout stages.
Yeah. But I really think it helps a team that might lose the first game.
Yes.
It could be a wake up call, but if you win and tie, or you could still get a third place spot, right?
Great. Okay, let's actually go into the first segment of this podcast right now. We're going to go through the groups that really matter most within this World Cup qualifying. So I think this is well described as the group of death. So it's a group with France, Norway, Senegal in it. All very, very strong teams with this. We had a podcast before of who we think are going to be the big heavy hitters. In this group of death with France, Norway, and Senegal, do you think France can necessarily win this group?
France should win this group, but it's called the group of death for a reason. On any given day, any of these teams could top the group. It's as simple as that. So one thing I wanted to talk about, Marco, was for each of these teams, what can make them win the group and what can actually hurt them. So I'll start with France. I'm not going to back down. Michael Olise.
Correct.
By the way, he just got a hat trick.
Yes.
Okay, so Michael Olise is the key. And if they don't use him properly, that would be the problem.
Yeah.
I think the other thing working against them, and I know this is going to sound strange because everyone else is picking this guy to be the the Golden Boot winner, but Mbappe. How does Mbappe fit into this team? Yes, we know he's skilled. Yes, we know he's quite capable. Yes, we know he bags goals. That will be one of the keys to France. But his chemistry in the team, and the fact that everywhere he goes now, they don't qualify or win trophies.
Yeah.
That could be a thing, right?
Yeah. I do think, and I've said this on a podcast before too with France, there's only one ball out there. And it seems like this sort of forward line, there's just an abundance of talent. And I don't know, let's see how it gets distributed amongst them, right? But you're right. Like, again, on paper, this team looks like unbeatable, but you're right. Honestly, maybe you've won me over to the Michael Olise, which I always thought he was a phenomenal player. but that he could actually really be the defining factor for this France team.
Yeah. But like you just said, it could be a thing of too many cooks. What do
Yeah.
you play? Do you play Doué? Do you play Zaire Emery? Do you play Mbappe? Do you play all of them? Like,
Bradley Barcola.
I think it's almost tough for the coach to have, but at the same time, it's a good problem to have.
Cool. No, I agree with that. Let's kind of move on over to Norway in that same group. Norway really looked amazing in qualifying. I'm going to throw this question out to you. Do you think Holland is enough? Do you think he's enough for this team to actually, come out of this group and go deeper into this tournament?
Yeah, I think it is quite possible that Norway could win this group. I do think Holland most definitely could be the difference maker. Out and out, I think probably the best striker out there. When it comes to World Cup games, and we've seen this before, you don't necessarily need a stacked team to go far. You need goals. These games get very defensive, right?
Right.
And Holland's the type of guy that can do that. So I think Norway could top this group as well.
Yeah.
What's against them, I think, is people know that they have to cover Holland, right? I don't agree necessarily with this argument that they don't have the depth, blah, blah, blah. I just think that we know, and we've seen at City, when teams start to really crack down on Holland and double, triple team them, that's the problem.
Good stuff. The last team, what I thought was this really trio of terror here is Senegal. Is Senegal one of the better African sides out there, or are they the best African side in the tournament?
Hands down, I would say Senegal is the best African side in the tournament. And hands down, but, edging Morocco. Let's just call it for what it is. I think, politics aside, they are the African champions. It took a lot to win that. I don't think they're getting as much credit as they should. To win Africa is pretty tough. We know Morocco's a tough side, and again, they played really hard on them. So I would not be surprised if Senegal won this group either. I think, for me, the glaring thing working against Senegal is I don't think they have the emotional intelligence to keep themselves in check when things aren't going their way. Because that's what happened at AFCON. They were upset at that penalty kick that they thought was fraudulent.
Right.
And they walked off the field. And with that kind of mindset, you're working against yourself.
I agree with that. Like, this is interesting. I do think that this is going to be a tournament where an African team really does pull through. But will Senegal be that team? Who knows? But, let's actually move to the next group. So this is the group that's been known as the Dark Horse group. So this is a group where the three teams that we identified out of it, Germany, Ecuador, and Ivory Coast. So let's actually start off with Germany. Could Germany win this group outright? Like, I know on paper, it seems like, yeah, this is a Germany win, but as tournaments as of late, could Germany win this group?
They could win it because of Florian Wirtz in my mind. Okay. Yeah. And obviously he's got a cast of players with him that are great. I don't think this German squad is the squad of old. I know they're playing well. I don't think they're threatening as compared to some other favorites, your France, Spain, Portugals. I think what's working against them is sadly the injury to Lennart Karl. I think that's a huge loss for them.
Another player that I really expected a lot from the last World Cup tournament and Germany not making it past the group stage was Jamal Musiala. Now, Musiala is, again, such a creative player. However, he's not 100%. His health isn't there. We're reading something Lothar Matthäus, probably one of the best captains of the Die Mannschaft side, recommended he actually sit out this tournament. So again, without knowing what's the inner workings of what's happening with Jamal Musiala, maybe he's not 100%, right? So let's see how they link up with that Jamal Musiala, Florian Wirtz, and then all of a sudden, no more Lennart Karl on the right side. So Is it going to be an opportune Kai Havertz that really helps them through? I do think that they're going to have a decent at this, and I'm always very, very critical of this team. So I think that kind of clouds my judgment a bit. But I don't have much expectations for Germany, but I know I'm going to enjoy watching them play.
And I think that's another advantage because I think a lot of people don't expect so much. That's usually when a team that's strong enough, like Germany, could prove people wrong.
Great. Let's actually move on to the next one here. And I know this one actually is near and dear to your heart, but Ecuador. Ecuador, they might be the scrappy South American side that could. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, well, to the listeners out there, if you haven't checked out our dark horse predictions, definitely
Yeah,
go
good
take
call.
a look because this is a team that in all of World Cup qualifying, they were the stingiest team. They gave up only 5 goals. And if Ecuador can manage to get to the knockout stage, I think that makes them even more lethal because every game is the flip of a coin. But when your defense is that tight,
Yeah,
right, that really puts you in the driver's position.
yeah,
However, what's working against them is the fact that where are the goals going to come from? Sure, there's Kendry Paez, but he's still too young.
yeah,
And Enter Valencia, he can still pot him, but he can't play 90 minutes. He's way too old for this.
yeah. Like, again, one of the players that I really looking forward to seeing, again, not going to be helping them scoring many goals, but also William Pacho on the back. I think one of the more standout defenders in the game in the last 2 years or so, just doing wonders at PSG with that back line. So again, very, very interesting one to watch there.
Actually, odd prediction here, Marco, but I actually think and expect, based on the age of Pacho and Hincapié and such, I think Ecuador is going to be more of a threat at the next World Cup.
Okay, let's kind of lead us into the third team that were picked out of this group, but Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast, I don't know if many people really kind of gave a lot of credence to. However, in prep for the World Cup, they actually did beat France in one of the friendlies. So all of a sudden, there are some eyes on Ivory Coast who were like, hey, you know what? Is this a team that's flying under the radar and actually may give a lot of these teams a lot of trouble?
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to explain Ivory Coast, ironically, using Ecuador as an example. Okay. So for African teams, Asian, any team outside of Europe, I think the big hiccup has always been the nerves when you're playing a European squad. Because let's face it, the European teams they're amazing, right? They're stacked. Ecuador endured some tough times. Going back as far as they played such a good game against England, and then David Beckham comes up and curls a goal into the corner, right? But to counter that, Ecuador now has a bunch of players playing in Europe. Ivory Coast has their entire squad playing in Europe. So because they play on teams across the continent of Europe, when they get together as a country, I don't think they have that fear of playing against European teams. They're all experienced. And I think that's going to actually be their biggest benefit playing against these other teams.
Interesting. Okay, so let's move on over to what's become to be known as the tactical group. And the three teams that we're expecting to really be strong out of this one are Japan, Netherlands, and Sweden. Now, Japan, we did really take a look at this at our Dark Horse Predictions podcast. So again, like Mark mentioned, go back and listen to that one. Really some great discussion on some dark horses. But this time, Japan, are they truly a contender now?
I think so. I think there's no more team in the World Cup that's more cohesive than Japan because they don't rely on one or two or three star players. They really don't. And evidence of that was in the last World Cup. Again, taking out Spain, taking out Germany, forcing Croatia to a shootout. Unfortunately, they lost, right? So Japan doesn't have your footballer that's in the top 50, top 100 footballers. But as a team, and I think that's a cultural thing, they're so good as a unit.
I do think Japan is going to be great team going forward as well. I do like for this tournament itself. I think that they're just solid all the way through. You're right, without that star power out there. But one thing that I wanted to actually point out to, and that's just kind of external to the whole World Cup discussion, is that I remember watching a few videos of Japan and their training regimen within, the high school level and such kind of in the youth level. And it looks like Brazil type futsal footwork. Like it's unreal what these Japanese youth players are coming out with, right?
There's a heavy Brazilian influence in Japan, actually. And that actually stems from the martial arts community. Traditional jiu-jitsu and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They're often, traveling back and forth.
Cool. Okay, let's take a look at the other team that we mentioned in this group. But the Netherlands. Now, Netherlands, I guess in lieu of all these other strong teams, are the Netherlands really being overlooked?
I think so. I think what once plagued the Netherlands was ego, and it's something you don't see today, right? I think they're playing more as a group. I think what hurts them is I think they've got to be the team with the most injuries of players who won't be making the World Cup. I think that's you have Xavi Simons out, Matthias de Ligt, Jurien Timber now out for the tournament.
And those are significant players on this team.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's interesting because Frimpong didn't make the squad. So you have to figure that, they got guys
that are quite deep.
Yeah.
Honestly, never count the Netherlands out. I think it's probably one of the best countries never to win a World Cup. Unfortunately, always really, really close to it. So I think just the pedigree is there. And I think, the Netherlands are probably going to make some noise. Okay, which brings us to the last group, the team of this group that we identified, Sweden. Now, Sweden having a lot of individual kind of star talent, but is this something that they can actually come out of this group and actually make a little bit of noise?
I think Sweden is quite capable of grabbing one of those third place spots.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, even though I've watched them play, I've followed them, I almost still don't know what to make of Sweden. They're almost a wild card or an unknown, regardless of how much I've watched about them. They have a squad where on any given day again, Isak can go back to his old form. Gyökeres on the national team can just erupt for goals. Bergvall's young and promising as well. So I think this is, for me, it's the big wild card team.
Interesting. Let's actually take a look at the home nations. So this World Cup being taking place in Canada, USA, and Mexico. Let's actually start off with the USA. How far can this home advantage actually take the USA team?
So the USA is in a group with Australia, Paraguay, and Turkey. I still have to think that Turkey's got some brighter stars in Arda Güler and Kenan Yildiz to take this group. Should the States be better off than Australia and Paraguay? Yeah, I think so. I think Paraguay qualified by the skin of their teeth. I wouldn't be surprised by an Australia upset over the States, but I think the States should get out of this group. I think, listen, in some cases, home field advantage can take you far. With this squad, it can only take you so far. So getting out of the group is the farthest I can see the States going.
True. I do think, they will get a lot of favorable calls because of the home field advantage. I do think this is easily one of the better American teams of recent history, with a lot of solid names, with Pulisic really kind of leading the charge, though. I think it is a solid team through and through. I think they can really play spoiler to a team like Australia, a team like Turkey, right? It's in their hands to really kind of take it further.
Yeah. Sorry, did you say the White House advantage? I didn't hear you.
No, I didn't say the White House advantage, but I like that. I do like that. I like that itself. How about Canada as a home nation?
All right. I think you got Canada in a group with Switzerland, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Qatar.
Yeah.
I think out and out, Switzerland is the strongest team by far in this group. But I do think Canada should get out of this group in second, if not in third,
In third.
because they should beat Qatar. They should beat what was a rather boring Bosnian side against Italy. And I mean, the Canadian team is so much faster. Bosnia is relying on, 40 something year old Edin Zeko. All credit to him and his country. But I think the pace of the Canadians is just going to melt Bosnia away. And against Qatar, I feel like the skill and the speed are gonna be keys to Canada taking second.
Mm. And as our third home nation squad, Mexico. Mexico seemed like a very solid squad going through, and I think most predictions of the home squad that goes the furthest would be Mexico. Would you tend to agree with those predictions?
Yeah, I mean, Mexico's in a group with South Africa, South Korea, and Czechia, and all their games, I believe, are being played in Mexico. And a Mexican squad playing at home, that actually does make a difference. That is your 12th man on the field. I think the Mexican team has progressively gotten better. From the start of qualifying, there was a lot of issues in training camp and stuff. To where they are now, I think the team is locked in because they are co-hosts. Um, so I do expect Mexico to win. I think their toughest challenge is South Korea, but I expect to see a lot of flair, and I expect them to beat South Korea.
So we did a podcast on our predictions of teams that are going to go far, of countries that are going to go far, and we did our predictions of the dark horse. There's two countries that didn't really fall within either of those past podcasts, but one team that really should come out of Group J, Argentina. So Argentina, right off the bat, in their first game on Monday, June the 22nd, they're going to be taking on Austria. Austria, which has traditionally been, pretty solid team. But should Argentina come out of that group unscathed? Are they poised for maybe a deeper run? Even potentially kind of repeating from the last win.
Yeah, so being Austria is their toughest opponent. Then they've got a bunch of weaker teams in Algeria and Jordan. I think, from what you're saying, they should be able to go on a deeper run because you should be able to beat Jordan and
Algeria.
You should be able to beat them without having to play all your stars. You can rest Messi so that he can help you in deeper games, right? Deeper in the tournament. So that's what I think is going to help them.
Yeah. And we did talk about, even in an earlier podcast where we talked about breakout stars, potentially having a lot of scores there, the Messi, the Alvarez, and also having Lautaro Martinez. So, maybe Martinez actually leading the squad in maybe two of these games as well, but having the depth at that forward line to actually score and to win these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So another team that I'm really interested in talking about, because we didn't talk about this one in an earlier podcast, is England. England, which I think probably gets some of the most scrutiny out of any footballing nation on the planet, just because a lot of their players are so well known. They poised to take this group L of England, Ghana, Panama, and Croatia. And can they go far with this? What are your thoughts here?
I think England should top this group. England, it seems like every tournament, we always say, oh, this is the best England squad. This is the best England squad. I think what works to their advantage is that Panama is rather weak in comparison to an England squad. Croatia, for me, great squad, but I think way too many aging players. And if you're still getting goals from Modric in friendlies, I don't know. I don't think that can continue against an England squad. And Ghana, they're just not one of the African powerhouses at the moment.
Yeah. Honestly, on paper, England looks phenomenal. But one thing that I'm used to seeing with an England team is just choking in these top opportunities, right? Not getting the most out of Bellingham, not getting the ball to Kane to put in the back of the net. I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch, and everybody wants to see how England does. There's just going to be a little bit too much noise for them.
Yeah, I think so. even in friendly matches like on the weekend, they're eking out 1-0 victories. And that's just been pretty consistent over the last couple of years where they're playing minnows and barely getting by. And I don't know, it might be a return to that thing again where it's ego. Ego is holding them back because on England, everyone wants to be the star. Everyone wants to be the hero. I think they have the squad to win the World Cup, but I just don't think they have that team mentality.
Very interesting. Let's see if Thomas Tuchel can pull it all together. So with that said, I think that was an amazing look at the World Cup. Now, again, World Cup starting up on Thursday. This new format means that there's more teams and there's more opportunities for some of these teams to actually go further. I urge you to go back and listen to our episode on Dark Horse teams, our episode on the predictions, because you're going to have a lot of great conversation with that. So if anything, they're really, really looking forward to how this starts. And this has been a very, very interesting and exciting kind of lead up to the World Cup. Now, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. If you can, please like and subscribe. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify and Apple. You know what? Mention us to a friend. This new World Cup format means more teams, more chaos, and more opportunities for somebody to ruin everybody's bracket.
And if history tells us anything, somebody absolutely will.
Thanks for listening, and we're keeping you
semi-informed.